United Grind Society presents the Turntable, where we discuss everything relevant to hip hop. I'm your host, Haiku, and I'm here with the panel. So let me introduce you to them. We have Jinx, Most High from United Grind. We have Siege from E.com. All right, all right. We have Garbs Infinite in the building. And we have Speed from Rom Royal.
What up? What
All right.
up?
This episode is brought to you by the latest release from Vice Souletric off of United Grind, The Reality of All People, Trap. Available now on all digital platforms.
Straight in the head, following what the kid do. Right. Greatly minimize the trouble I got into. Yeah, it was kind of weird, cause like all my peers said they fathers disappeared. Ain't seen them niggas for years. And I see
Make sure you guys visit therealityofallpeople.com. Check out everything he's got there, merchandise, everything else. It's dope. Make sure you check that out.
Do that.
Please do that. Please do that. So today we are discussing drugs in hip hop, past, present, and future. And there's a lot of things we can talk about in that. And I'm interested to hear everybody's opinion. So who's for drugs in hip hop? Why don't we start there?
I am.
What kind
Who's
of drugs
for
we
it?
talking
Me.
about? Right?
Hey,
I'm off. I am.
And I'm kind of serious, right? I'm kind of
I
serious.
am too.
All
I
right.
am too.
drugs has produced some of the best music in music history.
Exactly.
Okay. So, Siege, let's start with you.
Wow.
Defend your point here. Defend your point. And remember, your mama's watching.
Mama understand. A lot of, like Speed already alluded to, a lot of the best work was done under the influence of some type of drug. And
Do we
I
have
can
any
go-
direct examples?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can give some great examples. All of Redman's best work was done under the influence of some
So
type
we
of.
talking weed? Are we talking weed right now?
Oh,
Is it a drug?
Bruh, Red was on way more than weed.
Is weed a drug?
Well, first of all, weed is a drug,
I
but
believe. I
Red
don't
was
believe
on
that.
way more. He was on way more than weed. Trust and believe. Method Man. I'll say his lyrics got better when he got off of drugs, but his charisma was better when he was on drugs. So it was kind of like a even trade. I liked
Really?
Common when he drank better. I think Common, even though he said my speech and thought got quicker, his rhymes got slower. You go back and look at how he used to rhyme.
And I
Eminem.
disagree with that.
Eminem was on some pills and gave some great albums and got sober, and they weren't as great.
You bringing up some really great points, actually, bro. Like you really went in on this one, man.
Dude, I've been talking about this for years. I told Haiku plenty of times. I was like, it's crazy how dudes get off of drugs, which is a good thing,
Yeah.
but the music suffers.
See,
Wow.
so here's the thing. You're absolutely right. Can I go? Can I go though?
Yeah, go ahead.
So me, just to be the antithesis of your presentation.
Drugs are bad.
We need that.
Hold on. Let me make
He
my
said
point. Let me make my point. Some of the worst music has been created from artists on drugs as well.
Give an example.
Ooh, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Hey, folks, we didn't think this episode was going this way, did we?
I mean, there's a whole lot of records that have been played over the past 10
We're
15
assuming,
years.
right?
But I think I don't know if we can actually 100% put it on the actual drug itself other than the artist, because like a record that I actually like that I'm like I can't believe that people are doing this shit was like I used to like the sipping on some scissor. I thought that was a really dope record, but I thought like the idea of scissor is fucking stupid.
Now that's different. Dudes that sip
I
syrup.
definitely want to revisit that one because I kind of got a theory on the scissor era. But
Yeah, I mean,
what I will say is this: is that it's kind of hard to like truthfully gauge, like even with artists like Eminem or Redman, like it's hard to like actually gauge like when certain records were made, if they were always high when they made these records. Like, I mean, that shit is, you know what I'm
Bruh.
saying? I mean,
Bruh. These dudes was going to rehab. They was on drugs.
Okay, yeah, I believe that. I believe that they were
And the
on
only
drugs.
reason I gave those examples is those are direct people that when they got off of drugs, you could hear the change in their music.
And they talked about it.
And they talked about it, right?
And they
I
talked
don't
about
know,
it.
man, because I feel like Eminem made some bullshit, you know what I'm saying, when he was on drugs anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, and I always, and I liken a lot of what you're talking about to just age. You know what I'm saying? Cats tend, when they get older, to try to kick drugs at some
It's
point.
possible.
You
That
know
is
what I'm saying?
possible.
So, I mean, you can look at it either way. Most artists do start to, wean off at a certain ages or at a certain point. Drugs or not.
I think some of that's thirst too, because we talking about artists in their younger years, and it's like I want to be the best. At a certain point, you get your status, and at a certain point, you like, all right, I'm in company now. I got it, so now it's like I can just go ahead and do some shit. So, not saying that them cats that you mentioned was just doing some shit. Like him never stopped rapping incredibly, but his music just was yeah.
I will say I agree with what you're saying, Jinx. We can't really answer that for sure, but I will say drugs, if used over a long period of time, eventually it catches up to you. So cats that used it for an extended period of time, it may have helped you at the beginning, but eventually that catches up to you. Let's take Lil Wayne for example. Like,
well, maybe it's the idea of the drugs catching up is the actual problem with the.
What you mean?
What I'm saying?
Break that down.
Like,
know what you mean.
Like the drugs, you know what I'm saying? Like, who says it's the drugs that's helping? Maybe it's the drugs that at a certain point start to hurt the artist.
They do. If you take them long enough, they're gonna hurt you.
Right.
If you take them long enough.
There's only so long that you could do the same shit that you were doing at 18 years old.
Right.
20 years old.
Right.
You get into your 30s, it's a whole different story. There's a whole another set of things you have to actually look out for when it pertains to your health, mentally and physically.
Well, my damn door.
But this isn't.
Was that what that ding dong was? Okay.
This isn't unique to hip hop, though. I mean, this spreads across all music genres.
Well, speaking of, like, I got a little aside. So this was some years back, though. I'm looking at, I believe it was Scene Magazine. Big of Scene Magazine for all the Brown Road write-ups y'all did for us. Local Cleveland magazine. And I believe Sade was coming to town. So I'm reading this article they're doing on Sade, and it was saying how, like, she got high before her shows and before her,
yeah, she wasn't shy about it. She wasn't shy about it.
She was like on it. Like my wife is a major Sade fan, and I told her, she was like, "No way, not Sade." And I was like, "The chick's a weed head, man." And she says that she's on it like that.
Oh, I can totally believe that.
So it's like,
nigga, I get high just to listen to Sade. I guess I wouldn't be surprised.
So with me, I think it's interesting that to watch the balance that a lot of these artists play, because I think that's really what we're talking about. At least when we're talking about careers and alcohol, despite what people think is a drug, weed obviously is a drug, and anything, too much of anything can obviously be a bad thing. If you look at, and not just with hip hop.
See, just drugging now.
So, But with all that being said, I know that there are several artists that have lost their lives due to drugs, and I know we're joking around and we're talking, but there's a serious aspect of it too, right? We have China Rogers, Mac Miller, Juice World, and there certainly are more than just those names that cats that have lost.
A lot of them
their,
are more recent though.
Well, so let's talk about that. Let's kind of change it, because before we were talking about weed initially. We did bring up pills when we were talking about Eminem, right? Briefly, but we talked about weed mostly, right?
There was stuff in that weed, but yes.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Right? But now it's a little bit harder stuff that cats are using now, right? So we could talk about the scissor, right? We could talk about that, but when we're talking about like meth and some of the other, that stuff is a lot harder, and the lifespan is a lot shorter if you're using that stuff. It's a lot harder to gauge. At least it appears to be a lot harder to gauge when to stop using. That's why I have so many overdoses. Say it again. A lot more addictive.
A lot more addictive.
I agree with that.
Like all the drugs that rappers started doing after 2005, I would say, became like real hardcore drugs, very addictive, very destructive.
No, I think that was always there, though, man.
I feel like the scissor era introduced that.
Yeah,
I feel like as soon as like scissor became like this designer.
I agree with that. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That hip hop introduced to the mainstream world. You know what I'm saying? Before then, most drugs were on the street. Hip hop mimicked the streets for the most part. And I think at the point of Scissor and with DJ Screw and what I'm saying, just with the Texas culture, which was street culture in Texas. But it wasn't necessarily this widespread phenomenon that was the scissor era. You know what I'm saying? Once that got introduced, it kind of shifted. You know what I'm saying? It was like where hip hop was mimicking the street started mimicking hip hop for real.
I just thought of I want to stay on this subject, but I don't want to forget this. I just thought of some people that drugs really hurt in hip hop, and that's almost the whole Dipset. Drugs ravaged that crew.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
there's a lot of people out there like that, but I just wanted to say
it was hard for me to think of some.
Like the hardcore stuff has always kind of been a part of hip hop too, because it's always, like Jake said, it's been a part of street culture. So, like, I don't want to, throw these kids out there like they in this new land of hardcore drugs, because our rappers growing up, these cats were doing cocaine, which is hardcore as hell. You know what I'm saying? So they were doing all kind of crazy stuff back then, popping pills back then. I was watching something with Russell Simmons, and this morning, matter of fact, and he was some he alluded to, but he was like, man, we was high as hell all the time. All of us high as hell all the time. He going through that thing with the women right now. But that's another thing about decisions. You high like that, you're making crazy decisions. Sometimes those decisions today come with guns and stuff, but
I'm more or less talking about how the serve got introduced into the music. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure Russ and them was high as fuck. I mean, you in that upper echelon of, you know what I'm saying, hip hop and basically executive, you know what I'm saying, the executive branch of music in general. Yeah, shit. White people was been fucking snorting coke and shit for, you know what I'm saying, like forever. So of course, I'm sure that was happening. But it wasn't a lot of rappers talking about snorting coke like that.
They weren't talking about it, but they was doing it.
Though is that
that's not what I'm talking about. Though.
I do agree to some degree. What you're saying is that the scissor era, brought that to the mainstream. But in all actuality, like hardcore drug culture came in with Eminem and D12.
Yeah, they had a song called "Purple Pills."
It was a dope record too, but you know what I'm saying.
Hell, his logo was an OxyContin pill when he first came out.
Right.
Now that I think about it,
we had this conversation before about Eminem's, you know what I'm saying, influence on the culture, and you know what I'm saying. I don't want to get into that. level of the argument, but I just personally don't feel like, especially like the hip hop culture, the core culture, especially when it comes to black people in hip hop culture, I don't think Eminem had that type of effect on us like that. You know what I'm saying? I think Scissor was the first time where like rappers, street rappers, cats was actually talking about on record doing drugs.
Jinx, you do know hip hop is more than just street rapping.
Yeah, but we're talking about the widespread. You know what I'm saying? Like how it's affected down the line. So that's just how I look at it.
Yeah, but
I agree with you. But you know, I mean, we talking about hip hop and we talking about to the mainstream, then you have to bring up, you know.
No, I'm not saying that he didn't. I'm just saying that was, and I mean the argument can be made. It was all around the same time anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they all played their part for sure. Yeah, I just want to say real quick. Go ahead, Haku.
I was going to say your argument is valid. I'm not saying that it's not valid, but you know that is really one specific genre of hip hop. You know, screw hip hop is one, you know, subset of everything. It wasn't, you know, I think that it did affect a lot of people that listened to, you know, Lil Wayne and those type of artists, but cats that didn't listen to that, you know, cats like were listening to like Smith and Wesson, or they were listening to more East Coast stuff. They didn't hit them quite like that. You know, it was a little bit different. I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think cocaine's been around for a minute. Weed's been around for a minute.
Cocaine was for the rich people. Oh, like sure. The Russell Simmons, the execs, regular rappers.
LL used to talk about.
Yeah, once he got of status, then LL was on that. Let me break it down real quick though. Like at first, when rap first came out, it was very anti-drugs, very anti-drugs. If you listen to The Message, that was very anti-drugs. Run DMC,
and they would tell you they was high all the time too.
Right. I'm just talking about the music.
Making white lines.
I'm talking about the music.
Yeah, the music was anti-drugs. The music was
Run DMC was anti-drugs. LL Cool J, I'm Bad video was anti-drugs. And then, hell, NWA was anti-drugs.
Right.
I don't smoke weed or sex because it's known to give a brother brain damage.
Right.
Then the Chronic happened.
Chronic.
Then the Chronic happened.
Chronic is definitely a marker. That's a marker.
Yeah, right, a marker.
And that's when weed smoking was okay to rap about in music, along with Cypress Hill, Redman. So weed was cool. And you know how they say weed is a gateway drug? Weed made it okay to start talking about other stuff.
What's the gateway music?
Weed made it okay to start talking about other stuff, and eventually, cats started talking about selling stuff. Okay, so it was okay to start talking about. You had Dope Man, which was against selling drugs, but after the Chronic, then it was okay to talk about weed. It was okay to talk about selling weed. Mm-hmm. Then it was okay to start talking about selling crack, selling cocaine. Jay-Z. Then Eminem came along, and it was okay to actually use the stuff. So it was just a natural progression that happened throughout music to what we got today.
I feel you to some degree, but at the same time, you have older records that were still pushing, that were still talking about selling drugs that were, earlier records.
They're broad.
Like who?
What
hip hop records? A lot of rock records for sure.
And I'm not saying they don't exist. I can't remember them being mainstream enough for them to
be mainstream records that influence
for them to be influential.
Mainstream level, maybe not. Nothing, of course, was gonna be that much more influential than the Chronic. You know what I mean?
Because it's okay to talk about drugs now. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't have been okay to talk about drugs the way they're talked about in music now.
As far as using?
Selling, anything. You can pretty much rap about anything as far as drugs go right
back now. Then. I'm talking about
right, that's what I'm saying. That's the difference. That's the difference.
Are you referring to talking about using drugs back then, or are you talking about selling drugs back then?
I think it happened the way that he explained it. I think it happened exactly like that. Because I don't know about y'all, but when he was mentioning the names of the artists, to me, the Chronic is definitely that's an important period right there, especially for weed smokers. right? For weed smokers, that was it. It made weed, the choice drug, and weed is a gateway drug. It leads to a lot of other things because you are constantly, if you use it enough, you're constantly chasing the dragon, right? Chasing a higher high, and people are mixing stuff in the weed, right? So you had Snoop talking about it. Obviously, you had Dre talking about it. And if you look at it, it always starts off in general with one artist willing to not just tiptoe the line, but take one step over it. And I think that Eminem was that guy when it came to Oxycontin and everything else. And everybody's like, man, that's kind of real, because what everyone won't talk about, well, you guys all know it, but Oxycontin and a lot of those drugs, cats was using those in corporate world, right? Cats have been using that in corporate world, cocaine too. And we're talking about hip hop, but now when Eminem's talking about it, it's like, I am into weed, but I am into that, and now
in
you're
the 80s
talking.
and the 90s, that shit was not on the streets, not out here.
No,
In the
I
80s
No,
and the 90s.
it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Not in the 90s.
And a lot
90s
of-
was still.
PSK
The
is
90s
what I
was still anti-drug.
PSK is what I was one of the records that I was thinking of. I couldn't think of it earlier. So
I got
I'm sorry I threw that up, but that was that was one of those records that came out
PSK
earlier.
was still selling though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was selling.
That's a good
PSK
example.
was
That's
more
a
or
good
less selling
example.
drugs, which then turned into iced teas 6 in
Yeah.
the morning, which
Yeah.
was pretty much also about hustling. So all of that
Yeah.
was really kind of like the entrance of the hustling era. You know what I'm saying, of hip hop. Like I
Do y'all
hustle, I
feel
sell
like-
drugs, I do this, I
Do
do
y'all
that.
feel like it, like it was a change to doing and selling? Like, 'cause, the 90s was all about selling. Jay-Z
Not-
selling.
90s was about selling and smoking weed.
Selling
90s
and
was,
smoking weed.
90s was heavy weed era.
I mean, I don't look at weed like that. But hey, whatever, man.
Bruh.
Like,
Bruh.
weed's not a drug.
Oh, you said you don't look at weed that
Stop
way.
saying
Okay.
it.
Hey,
Does it
whatever.
get you high? Does it get you high?
Semantics.
Does it get you high?
Semantics.
From the earth, my brother.
From the earth.
So,
God made this for me and you.
Weed is
so
a plant. I know. That's right.
So let's change the kind. Let me ask this question. Let's talk about drugs funding careers, right? Because I know that with the selling, the group that comes to my mind automatically, I want to say Wu-Tang. I want to say that Wu-Tang was a group that, okay, I won't say them.
You
My
don't want to
bad.
say that.
No,
You
they
don't wanna
definitely were. They definitely were.
Yeah, I know I've read
I
somewhere.
was gonna say NWA.
There was a lot of people.
NWA was Eazy-E's drug money.
True that. Rockefeller. That was the first one that
Rockefeller,
came to my
y'all.
mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that probably had the best turnaround as far as investment. The ROI on that shit, nigga.
Hey, Dre flipped it into something nice too.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess. I
You gonna say semantics? You gonna say semantics?
Dre wasn't hustling, but all right.
I'm just saying, Dre used Eazy's drug. I mean, Jay used his own, but it was still funded from drug money.
Right. No,
One second. Let me just say this one, Garbs. I'll come back to you though. I'll come back to you. The part that's interesting to me is the way that cats will look at, or how the society will look at these individuals that have hustled, sold drugs, and have talked about it, have admitted it, right? And they've bought their equipment from it and all that kind of stuff, and have gone legal, right, with their careers, and how society will look at them in a negative fashion. Well, he sold drugs, he did this. But when we look at a lot of the people like the Rockefellers or Carnegie and all these other people, and they've all done wrong. All of them done wrong.
The oldest companies in America. The oldest companies. Very few of them were started from good old American hard work. Very few.
Right.
What's the saying? Like,
yesterday that was talking about I think it was John Hancock. John Hancock was like a big hustler. He was hustling in like illegal teas into the country, which actually was one of the reasons that actually sparked the Boston Tea Party.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
So he was hustling. He was on his grind. He was
hand-to-hand tea hustle.
I got that lip.
I got that Lipton's.
That good.
Bootlegging fortunes.
What you got on that Earl Grey?
Yeah,
Man.
so here's another interesting thing, though, is that now what that has led to is that people, especially with the younger artists, is that they are actually being listened to and indicted using their lyrical content.
Hip hop police. Yeah, absolutely. But hey, man, I ain't even gonna get that far into it, man. But that's the slight hand of white supremacy, man. Create a law, let them do it, enforce it on us. It's what it's always been. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you mean the government making gajillion dollars off of weed now after you got a whole population of people locked up for life for it?
Yep.
Shit. Even before then, it was, it was a lot going on before the actual legalization that was not being enforced over here, but it was definitely, the long arm of the law was reaching all over here. You know what I'm saying?
And
so
it's funny now that I'm older, I look at those different. Like you said, Haiku, when I was younger, I'm like, oh, they were selling drugs to start their music career. I can't believe that. That's terrible. Now that I'm older, I'm not condoning it. But in the atmosphere and times that we live in, them dudes were doing what they had to do to get to the next level. And like you said, America's been hustling since day one. They wasn't doing anything different.
Since day one till day now.
I want to know. I don't believe
100
anybody. I don't believe anybody becomes a millionaire without being connected.
Yeah,
to
I was trying to figure out the saying. There's actually a saying like, "There's no fortune built in this country without corruption," or something to that. Basically, paraphrasing.
More or less.
You got to hit the lottery. That's about it.
Dude, you can do 37 months with a rock in your pocket outside. This dude stole $24 million.
Is John Forte still in jail?
No,
Nah,
I don't know.
He got out? Okay.
He's out.
But he's in there longer for 37 months, though. I can tell you.
I was going to say, it was longer than 37 months.
Same deal. Like, you hear his story, it ain't actually like I thought it was. Like his story, he never even he wasn't like he was carrying duffel bags of
they made it seem like that.
Yeah, it did seem like I went all these years thinking that until he told the story. And he was like, nah, I just was, I was an intermediary basically, which is essentially makes you accessory to the crime and you go to jail too.
Right.
All that. You part of it, you go.
But they throw the book at whoever they want to throw the book at.
Yeah.
Right.
And you ain't getting 37 months.
So we've talked a little bit about, you guys have mentioned a little bit about, obviously getting caught, folks getting caught with drugs and going to jail. I do kind of want to change the conversation a little bit about drugs hurting people, hurting careers. We talked about, strung out, a little bit about strung out rappers briefly, but things going bad. Let's say that, cops are not any part of this, and people can't maintain that balance and, drugs taking over. I mean, I think we've seen a couple of.
You seen Jules Santana lately?
Well, Dipset's a perfect example. Yeah,
Jules Santana looks sad, man. Mm-hmm. I know this dude isn't really that relevant, but Shaheem, that was down with Wu-Tang.
I ain't heard that name in a minute.
Dude, he's crazy strung out. Crazy strung out.
Really?
I mean, it's bad.
How was? I didn't know that. Didn't he just get out of jail recently?
He might have.
It's been a while now.
The last time I saw him, though, he looked like Pookie from New Jack City. It looked bad.
I don't know when the last time you saw him, because that was like within the past few months. He actually got out of jail.
He looked good.
I mean, yeah, he didn't seem. It didn't seem anything.
That's a good thing, then. Yeah, that's a good thing. Last time I saw him,
that's that rehab program you ain't got no choice but to go into.
Right. That's true.
That's that cold turkey, right?
I'll name
Sub-Zero.
I don't know if drugs were the entire thing, but Old Dirty Bastard, I know he self-medicated because he had mental health issues, and that happens a lot as well. People turn to drugs to self-medicate sometimes.
Depression and do that too.
baby.
Say it again.
Wasn't Rock from
I think
yeah, ironically, his name was Rock. Ironically,
I think to some degree, a lot of creatives have, you know, certain issues with dealing with certain issues. You know what I mean? And that's part of
Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne at the peak of his career, at the peak, completely just fell off the edge because he couldn't take a cup out of his hand.
DMX.
Didn't have Mac Miller have the depression problem?
Mac had some issues.
That's that self-medicating I was talking about.
So
DMX, I think, suffers from depression as well.
So with all that being said, with all the examples that we've mentioned, you know, there's obviously a reason why none of us are strung out or fell into that trap. You know, whether it be environment, whether it be support system or what have you, or an example, because I know for me, I know it was watching a colleague suffer from drug addiction. I know that was a big thing. That was it for me. I was like, never. That will not be me. Was there a particular incident that you guys can cite as a like, boom, you know, I saw him go through it, can't do it, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
my dad was on drugs. So.
What'd you say, Jinx?
I said my dad was on drugs. So
yeah, I've had.
I can't think of a better deterrent than that.
Yeah, I'll do it.
That's for sure.
Members. I said I had a couple family members and friends, you know, go down that path, you know, and you know, I think that there is some truth that it can be a genetic thing. You know what I mean? Because like I know personally, me, I have the addictive personality, but
that's what I was gonna say, Garbs. Yeah,
but it's not with drugs though. You know what I'm saying? I just like grind and work. So I channel personality and that gene into other things. You know what I mean? And I think that, you know.
Do you think? I'm just curious, man. Like, do you think? Because I mean, I've heard that, you know, about people with like the addictive personalities and things like that. Do you think like the earlier that you indulge in just like substances and things like that, the earlier, the more susceptible you are to become an addict?
Absolutely. I was going to piggyback off of Garbs.
When's the first time any of y'all drunk or got high or anything like that? Like how old were you?
I was young. I was real young. Yeah. But it's because of the people. It's because of the people I hung around. I hung around people that were doing it, and so I did it with them. But
that's the case for a lot of people. But like, what's the number? Like the age?
I was like when I really, really drank.
Like, was like drink or smoke, whatever.
No, I'm telling you, it was. I really, really was drinking. That was probably like 8th grade. First time I had a drink, I was like 4.
So me, I know that back in the day, I heard the story that I took somebody's wine glass when I was like real young, you know what I'm saying? But the first time that I can recollect that I was, you know, as y'all know, you know, I battled quitting smoking for years. You know what I'm saying? Like it was, you know, and I still vape.
Dude,
I mean, I only have 1.5.
Keith Richards said quitting smoking has been harder than him quitting heroin. He quit heroin, but can't quit cigarettes.
Yeah, it's a very crazy thing. Like, so I still vape, but this has very little nicotine in it. So it's only got 1.5 milligrams, but I don't smoke cigarettes anymore.
I was just curious because I didn't really drink until I was like in my 20s. And I think the first time I smoked was, I'm trying to think, did I smoke a black? I think I smoked weed before I smoked the Black and Mild. So that was like around 17. You know, for whatever reason, I was like, you know what, I want to smoke. I want to see, you know what I'm saying? I want to smoke. And the drinking for me was always a turn off because it was always, y'all niggas look miserable when y'all drink. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll be around, but like niggas slumped over.
That's how I felt
you know
about
what
weed.
I'm saying? Kids,
That's
like
how I
kids
felt about
was,
weed.
see,
I see all
and
my friends on weed and be like,
see, and I saw niggas on weed, and I'm like, you know what? I could fuck with that because it wasn't nobody. You know what I'm saying? Because honestly, bro, like, especially if you look back at the '90s, motherfuckers was weed acting for real.
Well, you know, to me, it's at first I didn't get a chance to actually talk about when the first time that I, you know, drank or whatnot.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know if you wanted to. I was like, how can we about to say? Let me go ahead.
It's fine.
Go
No,
ahead.
it's not.
Yeah,
No,
please.
being in a church household, there wasn't nothing at the house to sip from. So that's first and foremost. In college,
Sip from the communion cup.
no,
Extra sip.
Juice.
no,
I wasn't done.
But I would say that in college, I never drank in college. It wasn't until after college, you know, so I was 20, 21. No, I was graduated by then. Bram. I wasn't graduated by then. Are you sure, Bram?
I was there.
All right. Senior year.
You was close. Yeah,
I had to be like senior. It had to be senior year.
Graduation day, nigga. What are we talking?
No. Probably my last year. But you know,
this was a random Thursday.
Okay. But you know, the thing that Garbs talked about there, and you know, I'm just kind of combining all the things that we just talked about here because it is that time to wrap it up. But you know, Garbs, you had mentioned you know, coping mechanisms for creatives trying to find a way to cope with stuff. And Speed, you were talking, you know, you mentioned a little bit of that, and a lot of it had to do with mental issues or people just not knowing necessarily how to cope with regular issues. They're just not really knowing how to do that. And I think a lot of people, try to find an excuse to use or abuse, and that, you know, and if it ain't alcohol, it might have been sex, or it might have been this, that, and the third. It could have been anything. You know, it's not hard to get, especially for vicey personalities. It's not hard to find an addiction. People can be addicted to a lot of things, whether it be video games or drugs or whatever. With that being said, I want to go right around the horn real quick. Drugs, their effect on, or the influence on music in the future, real quick. We're going to start with you, Jinx. What do you think?
I honestly feel like, you know, designer drugs are probably going to, you know, be the primary thing in the future, you know, and who knows what that shit does to people. You know what I'm saying? But
Okay.
you know, I don't think it's gonna be good.
All right. Speed, what do you think? Drugs in the future and influence on hip hop.
I kind of agree with Jinx. I think it's always been a hot chase for a lot of people. Right now, you got all these different strains of even weed. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about like the government legalizing it in different places and stuff like that is they're gonna look at a lot of that stuff and be like, you know, that's junk. That ain't really, you know, I can go get it legally, but that ain't what I smoke. You know what I'm saying? So you are gonna have a lot of little underground stuff that's gonna be off the chain. So ain't no telling, man.
Chemists gotta put drugs together in the future.
All right, Guards, what about you?
So first thing, what I want to say with this is I do think that it'll always have some sort of effect, but as they are making laws statewide, whether local, statewide, or federally, these laws need to work retroactively, and people need to be released from their weed charges. That needs to happen immediately upon it becoming legalized in whatever, whether it's on a city level, state level, or federal level. To happen.
Okay, Siege, what do you think?
I mean, drugs ain't going anywhere. They've been here since peace pipes, but I'm hoping, this is more hope than actual thinking, but I'm thinking with the way the climate is right now and the way we're moving in a socially conscious direction, it's possible that the music doesn't reflect drugs as much and it may steer towards something else, hopefully.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that all being said, we are interested in hearing what you guys think. You guys know what to do. Tell us what your opinion is on this. We want you to like, subscribe, comment, all of that. And
share.
With that, share too. That absolutely.
And hit the notification bell so you know when we got the new episodes dropping.
Ding, ding.
Say no to drugs.
Turntable out.
Or not.
Say yes to weed.
You part of the
and no to
problem.
drugs.
You part of the problem.